Update. My mom got a $30,000 personal loan in my name without my knowledge. The account is from February, which was when they bought a boat. Now, they've missed 4 payments and told me they're going to let it default since the boat can't be repossessed, and they're going to call DCFS on me. Original post. I knew my mom had her eye on a pontoon boat for the past year. She and my dad retired in 2022, and while they aren't swimming in money, they didn't seem to be struggling either, or so I thought. They bought a boat in February for a little over $30,000. I didn't think much of it, since they've always rented a pontoon boat 2 to 3 times a year and didn't appear to have money issues. At the start of July, I began preparing to buy a house. When I applied for a pre-approval, I found out my credit score was barely over 600, and I had an extra $30,000 plus in debt I had no idea about. Even worse, it was 90 plus days late. I told the lender the account wasn't mine, and he suggested my identity had probably been stolen, likely by someone close to me, since the money would have had to go to a bank account in my name. I shared a bank account with my ex-fiancé, so I asked the bank to look into it. They said the account had been closed a couple of years ago, when we broke up, and no money had been sent to or taken from it since. I filed a dispute with the company and the credit agencies, assuming I had been hacked or that my identity had been stolen. About a week ago, I received a notice from the company at my apartment, the first I'd heard from them, saying they were going to charge off the account if payment wasn't made. I requested more information and was linked to their fraud department. They were able to tell me where the money was sent, to a bank account from when I was a minor that I shared with my mom. When I called the bank, they confirmed there was recent activity on the account, and statements showed the loan coming in and almost all of the money being transferred into what looked like my mom's account at the same bank. I haven't used that bank in more than a decade. I called my mom and asked her about it, and after a long pause, she admitted that's how they bought the boat. They made 1 payment on the account and realized they probably couldn't afford the monthly payment for the next 5 years. When I asked why they hadn't told me, she said it was because they figured I'd say no, and they were right, and that they had worked hard in their lives and wanted to enjoy retirement. It ended with them saying the boat couldn't be repossessed because it was a personal loan. My mom suggested I declare bankruptcy, and I told them I was going to the police. My mom said no too, claiming they wouldn't take it seriously. When I insisted, she hinted she might have to call DCFS on me. My 2-year-old burned himself on a hot pan earlier this year. A simple ER visit where we were told accidents happen and is fine, over an unsafe home. I still think I'm going to the police because declaring bankruptcy would make it impossible for me to buy a house. I just needed to vent and get any advice. Now for the top comments before reading the update. She stole $30K, potentially ruined your financial future for 7 years, threatened to put your child in a situation where they could be taken and put in foster care for a freaking pontoon boat? OP, this right here. All this unnecessary suffering and stress over a pontoon boat? I'm sorry, but your mom sucks. Yep, this right here. It's all about enjoying their retirement. They're willing to hurt and abuse anyone who gets in the way of them having a nice retirement. Don't worry about the FCS. Chances are they will not investigate the report anyway. If they do, it's obnoxious, but these are 80% unfounded. You may need an attorney to represent you and file cease and desist letters that could turn into restraining orders. They stole $30,000 from you, and it was premeditated. They couldn't qualify for the loan themselves, so they stole the money from you instead, without asking. With a dollar amount, the DA is likely to press charges. I keep being shocked by parents who steal from their kids. This takes it to a fun new place with the threats of Child Protective Services. Please report this to the police. In addition, and tell them about the threats to contact Child Protection. For what is worth, threats to file for grandparents' rights or to call CPS are a bright line for me. I would strongly recommend that you consider cutting contact with your parents or limiting their involvement with your family. They can't be trusted. Now for the update. I filed my police report the same day as my first post. The officer and I talked for about 20 minutes, and I provided a printed statement from the bank. A few days later, I spoke with a detective for another 20 minutes. Fast forward about 2.5 weeks, and my dad called to say my mom had been arrested. He said an officer and a detective showed up at their house asking to speak with her. When she went onto the porch, they grabbed her and arrested her. The detective, the same one I talked to, explained they had a warrant. My mom has never been in trouble with the law in her life, and she was arrested on a felony charge. They tried talking to her, but she immediately requested a lawyer. They stopped questioning her, but didn't allow her to see a lawyer right away. My dad was furious, but the detective told him to have a lawyer go to the county jail in the morning before she went to see the judge. The next morning, her lawyer spoke with her and she was released in the afternoon with a new court date. About a week later, I received a call from DCFS requesting to meet with me about my son. I had nothing to hide, so I agreed. He spoke for about half an hour at my apartment and I explained the situation. The caseworker seemed understanding and said there were no obvious issues, but she had to follow up on the report. I will say that if I'm ever in trouble, I'm hiring a lawyer. The case was dismissed at her next court date in late September. The detective called me the next day and explained that the state attorney believed they wouldn't be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she intentionally stole my identity. He said he figured it was a flimsy reason because he had documents from the bank and loan company. He mentioned that the state attorney often drops cases, even clear-cut ones, especially when it's non-violent and they have a hired attorney. She never made a statement other than having her attorney tell the detective she didn't do it. The detective also said the loan company might go after my mom in a lawsuit. What brings me back here is that, a couple of weeks ago, the account was removed from my credit report. Even better, I got a letter from DCFS yesterday stating that the allegation against me was unfounded. I'm never talking to my piece of trash mom again. Thank you to everyone who gave me advice and hope in my first post. It just sucks that she'll probably end up with a free boat out of it, unless the loan company sues her, which I hope they do. Send the loan company the address where the boat is kept, with a photo. The problem is, they took out a personal loan, not a boat loan. In other words, they borrowed cash in her name, then bought the boat with cash, so the boat is not collateral for the loan. They might be able to sue the parents, but they'd have to basically prove in civil court what the state's attorney would not bother prosecuting, which would probably cost more than $30,000 in legal fees. Personally, if my parents called DCFS on me for revenge, that would be the end of my relationship with them, never to revive again. I would never let them see the grandchildren. OP, freeze your children's credit too. Have a lawyer send a cease and desist letter stating, since you took out a loan in my name and then called in DCFS, you are no longer able to contact me or my child. Attach a copy of the loan papers and DCFS report. If she tries after that, look into a restraining order. Next story. Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to subsidize my wife and kids anymore? Original post. All three of them are adults with full-time jobs. None of them have contributed financially to our household budget. My wife went back to work full-time when our youngest was 7. He is currently 24, and our oldest is 27. The kids have no student debt. Our retirement property is overseas, and that's where I am currently. 2 months ago, I finally had enough. I came home from an out-of-town work trip, and none of the food I requested be in the house was there. And it wasn't anything extravagant, just a loaf of sourdough, some deli meat, cheese, and a few condiments. Enough so I could make a sandwich before going grocery shopping. Apparently, that was too difficult for 3 adults to manage. My wife and I had an argument about it, and the kids took her side. I reminded them they were supposed to be contributing to the budget, but all 3 of them started whining about how expensive life is. No kidding, I'm working to support all 4 of us. Whatever, I made plans to go to our property on my next rotation. So after my time off, I went back to work. When I flew home, I just stayed at the airport overnight and flew out the next morning. I also didn't deposit money into the budget account, so now they're paying for everything. The house, my truck, and my wife's car are all fully paid off. They're covering their own utilities, property taxes, food, and bills. And they're all furious that I'm not giving them money. I'm good here. When I go back to work, I'll do the same thing. Stay overnight at the hotel and fly to work. My company even flew me to a more convenient city to fly out from. I think 3 adults with full-time jobs and a free place to live should do fine. I probably missed a bunch of information, but I'm a bit drunk, so feel free to ask questions. If they're not stupid, I'll answer. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. No, not the a-hole. What's your next move? It already sounds like you're separated. Is that becoming permanent? I don't know how to assist you, but I wish you the best of luck. I'd be curious what exactly is expensive when they all work full-time and have no rent or car payments to make. If their electricity bills divided by 3 are so high it eclipses a rent payment, they should use less. If they spend their money on food deliveries and shopping, too bad, so sad. Not anymore. Not the a-hole, but you probably should have made your kids adults long before this. From what you wrote, they appear to live with you and don't have much going for them. Yep, sounds like some parenting failure. Kind of made the situation is now like you guys didn't leave me sandwich stuff. That's it. Good luck. Convo should have been had 10 years ago. Are you even sure they're paying for things like the property taxes and other bills? Are they under your name? Because you might want to switch it out so they don't let it just go into collection and you end up with a bill. I work with a guy who taught me a very important thing. There's a huge difference between a problem and my problem. Now for the update. I woke up and read so many more comments than I expected. Many of them made me think, I really don't love my wife anymore. I love my kids, but they are leeches. I will be contacting a lawyer and initiating a divorce. I also will be pulling the plug on my retirement plans with them. I have enough money to last me the rest of my life here. I also have a defined benefit pension, but it won't kick in for another 5 years. Part of the reason I was working so hard away from home was to provide for my family. But now I see they don't give a half damn about me. I'll be offering my wife the house in North America and my truck in return for a fast divorce. I think that's fair. I'll keep my home down here. The other option would be to liquidate and split everything, but she spent 30 years getting the house how she wants it, so I doubt she'll go for that. If she wants to keep the house, I guess that'll be up to her and the kids now. Thanks for helping me turn a drunken rant into a life decision. I was probably headed that way, but an outside perspective crystallized my thoughts. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my sister's college when I'm paying for my fiancé's? So I, 29 male, grew up dirt poor. Like sharing meals and lights off half the month poor. My parents did their best, but with 5 of us, money was always tight. I hustled like crazy after high school, went to community college, then transferred to a good university while working full-time. I graduated with loans but landed a solid job in tech. Fast forward a decade and now I've got a good income and no debt. My fiancée, 26 female, is finishing her degree. She's been working too, but with her schedule and the cost of school, I offered to pay for her last 2 semesters so she could focus and graduate without loans. I want us to start our marriage on solid ground, so I don't mind helping her out. Enter my younger sister, 21 female, who's still in college. She recently found out I'm paying for my fiancé's tuition and flipped, saying if I can afford that, I should help her too. She's always been bitter about me getting out and doing well while she and the rest of my family are still struggling. I get it, but here's the thing. I've worked hard to be where I am, and I feel like my fiancé and I are building a future together. My sister and I aren't close, and it feels like she's asking out of entitlement, not need. Now, my parents have chimed in, saying it's family first and I'm abandoning them. I don't think I owe anyone anything, especially since I've already helped out when I could, paid off their electric bill last winter, etc. I'm torn. I don't want to be a selfish jerk, but I also don't want to set a precedent of being the family ATM. Am I the a-hole? Your fiancé is your family. Remind your parents and sister of that. You think he is an ATM? Better not to give a single penny. Exactly. Once you start, they'll expect it every time. Better to set boundaries now than deal with guilt trips forever. Tell them, yes, family first. That is why I am prioritizing the family fiancé and I are building and the family we will be creating. Yes, family first means focusing on the family OP and his fiancé are building together. He's prioritizing a future they're creating, which is exactly what he should be doing. Not the a-hole. You don't have to take care of your adult sister. You're not her husband, nor her father. She is an adult and can handle her own things. I'd go low contact with the entire family if I were you. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom that my stepdad was cheating with our neighbor and ruining their marriage? So I, 19 female, found out my stepdad was cheating on my mom, and now my whole family thinks I'm the bad guy. Here's what happened. I was at a coffee shop the other day, just grabbing a latte and trying to chill. As I am sitting there, I see my stepdad walk in. Nothing weird at first, I just assumed he was getting coffee too. But then our next door neighbor walks in right behind him and they sit down together. They were super close, and at first I thought maybe it was just a friendly catch-up. But then they started holding hands across the table. And at one point, he leaned over and kissed her. Right there, in the middle of the cafe. I felt sick. My mom has been through so much, and I couldn't believe he'd do this to her. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, but I knew I had to let her know. So I snapped a couple of photos on my phone, just in case she needed proof, and later that night I showed her. She was devastated, obviously. I mean, who would it be? She ended up confronting him and things have been a mess since then. She's been talking about leaving him and they're arguing all the time. Now here's where it gets worse. Somehow everyone in my family found out what happened and they all think I made a huge mistake by telling her. My aunts and uncles are saying I shouldn't have gotten involved, that it was a grown-up issue, and that I basically ruined their marriage. They keep saying my mom and stepdad would have worked things out eventually and that I'm the reason they're falling apart. I'm honestly so confused and hurt by all this. I really thought I was doing the right thing by not letting my mom stay in the dark, but now everyone's making me feel like I made everything worse. So, am I the a-hole for telling my mom about the affair and ruining their marriage? Not the a-hole. He did wrong. You looked out for your mom, but you are being used as scapegoat. Thank you. He is a total a-hole. If you kept this secret for your stepdad, your mom would feel betrayed by you when it all came out later. Sooner or later, everything comes out. So, most of your family thinks cheating should be kept secret? What a family you have. Perhaps there is more cheating and everyone is afraid you will squeal on them too. I would ask them straight up if they think what he did was fine and if they think cheating is okay. Yeah, they're probably cheaters as well. Relationship advice. Update. My 27 female boyfriend, 28 male, is obsessed with my ex, 27 male. Original story. We've been together for 2 years, and before this, I would say our relationship was very close to perfect. At the beginning of the year, though, my boyfriend and I were at the grocery store, and we bumped into my ex and another friend. This was the first time they had ever met each other. We made polite conversation before going our separate ways. My boyfriend made a sarcastic comment about how nice my ex was when he was out of earshot. I didn't think much of it at the time. A few weeks after this, I noticed he was on my ex's Facebook page. When I asked him what he was doing, he shrugged it off and said he was curious because he saw my ex had commented in Luke's, a mutual friend of ours and my ex's, post. He since friended him on there and claimed my ex was the one to initiate it. He's followed him on Instagram and Twitter too. He comments on a lot of his posts too, but my ex rarely comes back. He also somehow got Luke to invite him to my ex and his friends' weekly virtual hangouts. I mentioned I found it weird that they were hanging out, but he dismissed it and said it wasn't a big deal. He's also started talking about changing his career path to what my ex is doing, and makes snide comments about if his dad paid his way for him, he would take me on fancy trips too. He's also become incredibly passive-aggressive towards me and makes comments about how if my ex didn't move abroad for a few years, we probably would never have dated. If I say no to anything, including intercourse, he comments about how he bets I wouldn't say no if my ex was the one asking. He also got really sulky when he realized I still had a gift my ex gave me. Yesterday, we had a massive fight over it because I wanted to spend time together, but he ditched me to go hang out with my ex. I got so upset, I told him he might as well date my ex instead. I don't really know what to do now. He's giving me the silent treatment, and I heard him tell my ex what I said, which is really humiliating. What can I do to make him stop hanging out with my ex? Now for the top advice before reading the update. If you want to be so much like my ex, I'll just break up with you too. Red flags all around. It sounds like your guy is deeply insecure and channeling that insecurity into loathing. He's already taking it out on you. Manipulating you, pressuring you in the bedroom, even attempting to turn your seemingly amicable ex on you. He's pushing your boundaries, and his demands are impossible. Nothing you do will fix his insecurity, and so he will continue to lash out and demean you. I know, because I have been there. This relationship sounds nothing close to perfect. I sincerely hope you distance yourself from him and get some perspective. Best of luck. Hey, so you mentioned that your relationship was close to perfect before this, but considering this started nearly a year ago, this new dynamic characterizes almost half of your 2 years together. Sounds a lot like he had on a honeymoon period mask and has now revealed his true colors. Sorry, but I don't think getting your boyfriend to stop hanging out with your ex solves your problem. Your current boyfriend has serious issues and is demonstrating a willingness to try to build himself up by tearing you down. He also is apparently pretty manipulative and controlling. So many red flags. He's managed to make you rethink ever saying no to him because you're trying to avoid a manufactured fight in which he compares himself to your ex. He sulks to get his way. He guilts you to get his way by saying you probably wouldn't say no to your ex. Passive-aggressive, etc. It appears he's testing your boundaries to figure out what emotional manipulation he can apply to get his way. He's punishing you by weaponizing things you say while discussing your relationship with him and telling them to others to shame you and make you less likely to advocate for yourself later. Kind of sounds like he's trying to make you jealous to prove you love him more, possibly stemming from insecurity, but could be more malintentioned than that. Constant testing of affection is not a great strategy for longevity. He's insincere. The two-faced thing he has going on with snide comments about how nice your ex was, and making fun of the opportunities/connections your ex had in his career at the same time as he's trying to build a relationship with him to leverage his career connections, is definitely going to catch up with him. The way you describe it, it's deeply creepy how he manipulated his way into your ex's friend circle. I'm sure you want back the boyfriend you thought you had prior to this revelation, but he probably doesn't exist. This is who you're dating. Even if you get him to stop hanging out with your ex, he's demonstrated how he interacts in relationships once he's made it to the comfort level. He will use what he learned through this period to get you to think it's too much of an inconvenience to stick up for yourself in other ways. Please don't buy into the sunk cost fallacy. You've got too much of your life still ahead of you for that. Don't take my word for it, though. I highly recommend you read Lundy Bancroft's Why Does He Do That? I think you'll recognize your boyfriend. And now for the update. After my last post, I tried to take the advice in the comments and suggested couples counseling. And I asked my boyfriend to cut off my ex, but he got angry at me again. He claimed I was the one who needed therapy because I had jealousy issues, and that my ex was one of his good buddies and I couldn't dictate who he was friends with. Then a week later, he had another hangout with my ex and his friends, where he proceeded to very loudly tell them how I was so insecure and I was trying to tell him who he could speak to. My ex and Luke had to tell him to stop, which he didn't like at all. I should have just broken up with him at this point, but I was stupid and still clinging to the hope of my boyfriend going back to how he was. After this happened, my boyfriend was constantly making jabs at my ex and Luke, but then he would still contact them and pretend to be friends with them. Then, he became super interested in what my intimate life was like with my ex. He was constantly asking me who was better between the two of them, and he would ask me if I had done this or that with my ex. I kept telling him I didn't want to talk about it and to stop asking me. I then found out from my ex and Luke that he had been asking my ex directly the same questions, and that he had been bragging about our intimate life to his friends. My ex said he was telling me because my boyfriend made a comment about loaning me to my ex, if he ever felt like recreating old times. That was the final straw for me, and I broke up with him and moved out. My now ex-boyfriend didn't take the breakup well, and he went on a smear campaign. He even contacted my family and my ex's family to tell them we were apparently having an affair and that he had no choice but to break up with me. It's been almost a month since we broke up, and he keeps getting new numbers to text and call me. Deep down, I think I knew this would be how things ended.
I'm sad about the relationship I thought we had ending, but now that I've had space away from my ex-boyfriend, I feel much better. And it's like a huge weight has been lifted from my shoulders. Damn, consider a restraining order or something. His obsessive behavior is concerning, and it's better safe than sorry. This actually could be an option. OP, even if he doesn't seem threatening now, please keep a record of every uncomfortable text, call, post, etc. just in case. I've had to deal with a crazy obsessive ex before, and it was a very tough experience. Jesus, I am so sorry about this, but I am glad you were able to get away safely. I don't want to alarm you, but if he is still harassing you, then you need to be concerned. I recommend you let your family and friends know what is going on. Preserve any messages from him that he sends, even from different numbers, and consider if you want to pursue a restraining order. This is not just a bad breakup, this is harassment. If I were OP, I would be a little bit nervous about the potential for physical stalking. In addition to preserving previous evidence, I would start using a security camera at my place, and while I wouldn't agonize over the footage, I would save it just in case. This dude is nuts. Leave and don't ever look back. Seriously. Seriously? Her and her ex broke up for reasons. The now ex still decides it's a good idea to be the bigger idiot. What the hell was he thinking was gonna happen? Now for the next story. Wild update. Guilt. Thinking of ending my 29 female, 10-year marriage to my husband, 32 male. Original story. I feel like a bad partner for even doing this here, but here we go. I have been with my husband for 10 years. Got married because he was in the army and I was trying to escape my life. We both come from very different backgrounds. He is white, from a conservative family, grew up poor. I'm black, grew up rich, from a liberal/educated family. It was very much a poor little rich girl running away with the boy from the wrong side of the tracks. I'm not the easiest person to live with. I am very career-driven and my job is my life. I love what I do and work in an industry that takes me away from home with weird hours. I'm not a super affectionate person as it's hard for me to share my feelings, cuddle, etc. I'm never going to be the woman that leaves her husband cutesy sticky notes and love letters. My husband is a good man. He's supportive of what I do, but I'm starting to think we can't give each other what we need. Example, my husband is a very sensitive guy. He also struggles with depression. He loves me more than anything in the world, but expects me to take on all the burdens when he can't. He lost his job 2 months ago. At the same time, I transitioned into a director-level role with a new organization for the first time. He's never done much of the household work, but I asked him to pick up the slack since he's unemployed. He hasn't. Literally sleeps all day. Applies to jobs here/there, but is mostly depressed in bed. I do all the finances, all the housework, most of the cooking. I told him last night that I feel like I take care of him, but he doesn't take care of me/himself. I mentioned splitting the savings to separate. We are both in therapy, separate, and he wants to commit to trying to work things out until the end of the year. I agreed. This morning, he went and bought me coffee, which was sweet, but immediately fell asleep. Even now, he's in the bed snoring. Part of me is over this. I don't want to be with someone else. We've been together for so long. Is it wrong that I'm afraid of losing this investment? I would love to have kids with my husband, but I don't want to bring them into chaos. Honestly, part of me is also concerned about dating at 29. All of my friends are now married/having kids. I feel like I wasted my 20s. Is it too late to start over? I also know my husband would not take separating sitting down, and I'm afraid of breaking his heart. I don't know, Reddit. Help me out. Now for the top advice before reading the update. It sounds like your husband is in a real deep depression, and it's getting to you. Losing a job can be really hard on a person. I think considering divorce or separation after just 2 months of unemployment during a time when unemployment has been at its worst in nearly a century seems rather drastic. You've been together nearly a decade. Give him at least a few more months to get his life back on track. I really think times like this are when antidepressants medications can be really helpful in returning life circumstances back to normal. I hope you both will be doing better soon. You kinda lost me here. Is there more to this story? Does he have a long history of unemployment? You've been together for 10 years, and your breaking point is 2 months into your husband having what is clearly a depressive episode that he needs professional help with? If you want to leave for whatever reason, you have absolutely every right to leave. But if you love this man and want to stay, you should be trying to help lift him out of his emotional state, rather than just calling it a day because things aren't exactly how you would like right now. Finally, a good comment. It's as if people just expect perfection. Depression doesn't just last 2 months, and he's your husband. Help him. You should leave because honestly, I think your husband can do better. He's clearly going through a depressive period, and instead of being worried or concerned for his health, you're worried of him not having a job during a pandemic. You made no mention of couples counseling. So you decided, without even trying to save your marriage, that you want to end it. So end it. Give this poor man the freedom to find someone who will love him in sickness and health. Edit. I have to say, I reread your post. And the more I read it, the more I find little to like. You are upset your husband went to sleep after getting you coffee, but you yourself admit to not being cutesy. You sound like someone who needs attention but can't give it. He's been depressed our entire marriage. He has been in inpatient treatment. He has been on medication. We have done couples therapy. I gave him 2 whole years once he got out of the military to readjust. I just took a job trying to work on police reform with a bunch of cops. In this moment, I mentioned I'm a director level now because for the first time I have a team and would like support. Maybe he does deserve someone else. Maybe I do too. And now for the update. I posted 5 months ago about ending my 10-year marriage to my underemployed and depressed ex. I had a lot of guilt at the time and wrote a self-deprecating post and got roasted. Lol. Looking back at the post now, I really was going out of my way to paint my ex in a good light. I was in love with him. I still have so much love for him after a decade and tried to protect him. I did take some advice that I got and did a collateral visit with my now ex's therapist that same week. And that meeting is when the crap hit the fan. Through the conversation with the therapist, I found out my ex has borderline personality disorder. The therapist asked me how I was coping with that news. Apparently my ex told his therapist that he had told me. A lie. But it makes sense. The diagnosis is terrifying. I was more pissed about the lying about it. Not telling your wife for 10 years that you have BPD was the last straw for me. We got into it after my session ended. Surprise, surprise, and everything started spilling out. Here are some things I found out during that final spat. He probably, definitely, cheated on me multiple times. He might have a 13-year-old child and never bothered to get a paternity test. He has a bunch of adult tapes of us that I did not consent to, which he threatened to leak. My entire world became undone at that moment, and I felt like I was looking at a stranger. I was honestly terrified of him after this was all disclosed. I packed up my stuff that day and left. Filed for divorce in January, and I just moved into my own place. I got a lot of crap in my original post. I was called gold digger, shallow, etc. Some of what was implied about me were true in retrospect, and I don't regret posting what I did. I've been in therapy to help me understand how a 19-year-old wound up married in the first place. But that's a different story. I'm nowhere near ready to be in a committed relationship anytime soon. Anyone reading this who has a funny feeling about a relationship, follow your instincts. Maybe it's nothing, but it might also be everything. Now for closing comments. I was called gold digger. This is particularly hilarious because it sounds like you were the one paying the bills. Good lord. Thank God you got away from this dude. Literally, anytime a woman is deemed insufficiently supportive of a sad/angry partner, there will be at least one comment implying, or outright stating, that she sees him as nothing more than a meal ticket, regardless of their actual financial situation. A lot of people out there who are very quick to throw that accusations around. Can't dig for gold you don't have. I love when people say dumb stuff like that. Like, unless you're secretly a millionaire coming into inheritance, you'll have to miss me with that $50,000 salary. That's more like copper digging. I'm so sorry this happened to you. You did the right thing by getting out, and I wish you the best. Threatening to leak an adult tape is just so unbelievably low and abusive to you. Personality disorder or not? Pretty sure threatening to leak a tape is also illegal, especially if it was recorded without a party's consent. Just wanted to say, BPD isn't a terrifying diagnosis and doesn't make someone evil or bad. Your ex-husband is evil and bad and just also happens to have a personality disorder. I'm really glad that you got out, and I wish you happiness and healthy relationships going forward. I have BPD, and it made me sad to read that in her post. Thank you for saying this. I see what you're saying. I don't think I worded what I was trying to say correctly. I was trying to say, in a sense, I understood being afraid to tell someone. But the lying about it to both me and the therapist was the scary part. I struggle with depression and anxiety. I know there's a stigma around mental health. I appreciate the comment and hope this explanation makes sense.